Welcome back to Rise Up, our series through 1st and 2nd Samuel. Last week we left off with a turning point in the story where Saul has done this thing that he wasn't supposed to do. He's overstepped his bounds and he has performed the duty of the priest when he is just the king. And so as a result, God has rejected him. And we're going to see this play out over the course of the next couple chapters. But in this chapter we get this little sidestep in the story where we see Israel at war with their enemy, the Philistines. And Saul's son, Jonathan, who by all accounts in Scripture is a righteous person who fears God, who does what he's supposed to do, he has this moment where he steps up and he becomes a hero. So the Philistines are camped, and Israel is camped, and they're preparing for battle. And in the middle of the night, Jonathan wakes up, and he wakes up his armor bearer, and he says, "Hey, let's go over there, and let's go see if God's going to use us to win this war." Now, a normal person at this point would probably say, "No, go back to sleep." Right? If your buddy says, "Hey, why don't the two of us go take on an army?" You say, "No, I'm not doing that because that's stupid." But the armor bearer trusts Jonathan. He knows that Jonathan has a relationship with God. He knows that Jonathan's not going to do something that God doesn't tell him to do. And Jonathan really convinces him with this line that we see in 1 Samuel 14 in verse 6. Jonathan says, let's go over there, let's go fight these Philistines. And then he says, "It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few." Jonathan gets it. Jonathan understands that it doesn't matter. It doesn't take an army to win the battle because they have the Lord on their side. He's not putting his faith in his men. He's putting his faith in his Lord. And this is a stark contrast to what we've just seen in the chapter before from Saul, where Saul had to make this sacrifice before God, and he had to break God's laws in order to do it because his men were starting to lose faith in him, and he couldn't lose his men. And so we see Jonathan and Saul on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Saul was willing to do whatever it takes to win the men over because he thinks he needs them. Jonathan is willing to do whatever it takes to be obedient to the Lord because he knows that's all that it takes. And so Jonathan and his armor bearer head over there to the Philistines, and of course God comes through in a powerful way, and God ends up striking down the entire Philistine army, and he just uses these two guys. And so I think, church, that there's an important lesson in here for us. So often we're faced with this crossroad where we can take the route of Saul, and we can do whatever it takes to win people over because we think people are our main resource. We think that we need these connections or these things or whatever it may be in order to be successful, in order for God to have victory. And we kind of get into an ends justify the means type of thinking where, anything that we do is justified as long as it's working towards the end result. But Jonathan presents another option where we can trust God, where we can realize that it doesn't matter the resources that are at our disposal. It doesn't matter the relationships that we have. It doesn't matter if we have the numbers on our side. What matters is that we are obedient to God and we do what we're supposed to do. And so that's my encouragement to you, church, is do what you're supposed to do. Listen to God. Be obedient to his calling because it doesn't matter what the circumstance looks like. It doesn't matter how many people are stacked against you. It doesn't matter what the odds are. If we're obedient to God, nothing can hinder him from saving, from working his will in our life, whether by many or by few.